you're a passionate entrepreneur, chances are you'd love to be able to bring your cause into your business and be able to help other people and monetize this process, right? But what about funding all of this? And what if you could use crowdfunding to help you get more traction, get more momentum, and help more people? Well, we've got a great treat for you today, somebody who I just think is fantastic, and they learned a little trick along the way that they're going to share with us about crowdfunding. Hi, it's Melanie Benson here. I'm America's leading small business optimizer. And we've got this weekly podcast where I'm exposing you to all kinds of great ideas and strategies, and most importantly, really great entrepreneurs who are up to big things that you can learn from. And I want you to listen today for that aha, the insight, maybe this little tip that will help you make your business perform even better. Now, my guest today is somebody that I met in the Women's Speakers Association. We're both involved there, and I just loved what she brought to the table that I knew I had to bring her to my show here. Krystine McInnes is a serial entrepreneur dedicated to building sustainable communities with social impact and a focus on what she calls the triple bottom line of planet, people, and profit. And recently, in her desire to really get better traction and be able to grow more, she started experimenting with crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and found there were some really unique things that they could do to get better traction using those techniques. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks, Krystine.
Thanks so much for having me, Melanie. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to this.
And here I was like practicing your name over and over again, and I still butchered it. Sorry about that. It's like when you put too much attention on something, it ends up going sideways.
Always. I hear you.
So, I don't really know how you got started in social entrepreneurism, but I would love to hear a little bit more about, like, how did you get to a place where you decided, I'm going to take these places I want to make a difference and build businesses around them?
Oh, such a great question. So my whole life, this has really been a passion for me. And I came from a real dog-eat-dog kind of environment, very aggressive, sales-oriented, set targets and achieve goals. And was always told that it's great that you want to do good in the world, but you can't make a business out of that. Mm-hmm. And something inside me really knew that wasn't the truth. And so over years of really developing my business, I've kind of circled back to the same place I started. And I've always had this passion for, really doing things, leaving the world better than when we found it. And if my heartbeats are going to count for something in my lifetime, let them count for something that does good in the world. So we're in this crazy time in history right now where, this idea of social entrepreneurship is becoming very trendy and popular. There are new business models that are actually stepping up in the corporate world that are supporting social entrepreneurship. And, for me, it's really combining, this passion to really take care of the things that are important to my heart and at the same time create successful business around those same virtues and those same qualities, and that we don't have to compromise one for the other. So it was really this place inside my heart that just really said, I know there's a better way to do this. And, our capitalist model is a little broken. It's set up on a system of, rewarding greed and putting profit above all else. And this shift to a focus on planet, people, and profit in that order, is really an exciting time in history and an exciting time for me because I'm just so passionate about this.
And I can tell. No lack of enthusiasm on your behalf. But, and it's true. And there's a really deep subject I won't get into now, but it's a class that I teach for my people on spiral dynamics, which says that at certain points in our journey, some people who have a real passion for their work might reject money and say, I don't want to make this about money. I really want to help people. So to be able to integrate our passion to make a difference and be profitable is a very powerful place to be. It's an evolution of consciousness, but it's also an evolution, I think, of business. So give us a couple of examples of the type of causes that you've been building this model around.
Oh, okay. Well, I come from kind of a private finance, private development, real estate development world. And so I started experimenting with green technologies, wanting to do sustainable building and experimented with a few things and some, projects we were building at the time. And then, that kind of launched into, well, if we're going to create these buildings that are going to be here for, however many hundreds of years, who knows? Let those buildings have impact, and what could we do on a community level? How could we integrate urban agriculture, so organic agriculture coming into residential development, and reconnecting people with their food, which is a passion of mine as well. Reconnecting people with nature and reconnecting people with each other, so creating community cohesiveness within a building, and community programming, taking percentages of profit and dedicating those things to microfinance initiatives, supporting young entrepreneurs locally and globally. So we've been kind of playing around with all these different ideas. And one of our great projects we're working on right now is an organic farm in southern BC. And we also have a green living seniors housing project. So kind of integrating the same ideas, organic agriculture, a very holistic lifestyle, reconnection with nature, reconnection with each other, creating that community cohesiveness, reconnecting people with, with their environment. And if we can do that, could we positively affect the health and well-being of those residents? The sense of purpose in daily living is really important. When we look at the things that make us happy, it's not always just money. It's not about material things a lot of the time. And so, finding ways to create connection through business models, through project models and community models and different ideas like that. And, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding for us is just, one very exciting version of things we've been playing with anyway at kind of a local level. So it just opens up the door to, touching even more lives on a mass scale, and you communicating directly with the hearts of other individuals that, share that passion for making the world a better place and having a strong financial return and not compromising one for the other.
I love that. And, again, I've been coaching and mentoring entrepreneurs for almost 15 years now. And the one thing I think it's almost becomes a barrier for them is how to create capital to
Right.
grow their business and to do the things they need to do. And, they don't want to compromise the values they have, but yet they need money to grow. And so crowdsourcing is a fantastic way to be able to, activate that flow of money. So let's talk about how you got into crowdsourcing as a strategy to help fund these business models. What was the catalyst for that?
Oh, well, it was a pain point, to be honest, because I came from this private equity, private finance world. Bridging into this social entrepreneurship, it's a totally different animal, and so I come from that dog eat dog environment of profit above all else, and it's great that you want to do good, but we just want to make money, and that seems complicated, and manpower and all the things that go with that. So what happened for me is I actually failed. I was kind of starting to put things together and realizing I had one of two choices. I had to compromise the values that we were basing things on, or I would have to do things in secret, it's sell a vision, and then on the back channel kind of be, well, and then we're going to do these social things and these community things, and we're going to market these things and talk about these things, but we're not going to talk about those to our investors. And that's a failed model from the beginning, because you don't have alignment in your team. So we fell into it, by out of kind of desperation in a sense, because I couldn't communicate that way in the private equity world. I needed to now reach out to individuals and really start talking more about what we were doing and why we were doing it, and connecting kind of the gap that I was seeing. And for me, the crowd is such a cool idea. It's not new, right? I mean, we're doing this stuff anyway. The difference today is technology. Technology connects us on this global level where I can share a message to millions of people, my demographic opens up, my ability to, share that word opens up. The way that we're communicating has changed drastically. So there's nothing new here. We would fundraise for a project in a similar way, talking to our friends and family, maybe engaging some individuals on our behalf that would go talk to more people. Now we're just doing it through this platform of technology and using interesting things like video and social and these very trendy words that really are really an old school model now brought to a technology platform. So it's exciting. It's exciting for myself. It also, I think, is now allowing these great ideas that maybe would be kept in secret or only communicated to within a small network of people. It's taking these great ideas and putting them in a place where other individuals that are of like mind can show up. A crowdfund campaign isn't always about raising money. Oftentimes it's about strategic relationships and strategy, and there's a lot more involved than just the fundraise itself. So all roads lead to Rome in the end if you're clear on that objective, and this becomes a portal and a platform to now communicate your message and then move that vision forward to kind of the next level.
So let's help everybody understand what crowdsourcing really means. Because, this may be a new concept, or maybe people have misconceptions about what it means to crowdsource.
Yeah. Really the crowd is the people. We can go back to like democracy times and, we the people, like it's really the people in the capital P in a sense. It's this broad audience that you have access to through social, through mostly technology based. And so the crowd is the people.
It could be your community, but it can also be people that are tangentially connected. It's like it creates that viral exposure, right?
Exactly. And oftentimes it's not the people you directly know, it's the people they know or the people those people know that go, this is cool. What they're talking about is really interesting. And, I'm aligned with that in philosophy, or I'd love to support a project like that, or, whatever that feedback might be. So the crowd is the people, and crowdsourcing is really, or crowdfunding is really going to the people and communicating, an authentic message with some strong substance behind it. And you've got a business plan, you've got financials, you've really got, everything together that you would normally have. You're presenting an opportunity to an investor. And you are communicating now to this broad audience, and you're asking that broad audience to support your cause. And that might be financially in the sense of crowdfunding, where they're stepping up and saying, I'm willing to support this initiative by, if it's a rewards-based platform, it would be maybe the pre-purchase of an item, or a donation, or a rewards campaign is like the company is going to give you something in return for that monetary contribution, or an equity platform where in return for that monetary contribution, you're actually getting a return in that company. So you're getting an investment return. You might be getting shares. There might be other things that are offered financially that you now, as a part of that crowd, have access to.
Yeah, and you can get really creative with that too, because you can create different tiers of, you contribute at different levels, and you can have different perks or rewards back, or different levels of ownership, or whatever it is that you want to incentivize people with. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And there are legislative rules that govern, Canada and the U.S., and you have to be compliant with those rules. And so there's a little due diligence there, and making sure that you've got your I's dotted and your T's crossed. And assuming you do have some flexibility. You can offer, a rewards campaign can be anywhere from, say, $1 to, I don't even know if there's a cap on rewards campaigns, up to 10,000 or 20,000. Once you start getting into larger dollar amounts in a rewards campaign, you're really outside your audience. Rewards campaigns really work best for lower dollar amounts.
Okay.
Once you're kind of above the, $1,000 mark, you should really be looking at an equity platform where, if someone's willing to put $1,000 into your company, they're probably going to want something more than, a T-shirt with your logo on it, or or the first issue of your product.
Coffee cup.
Yeah, right. So it really depends, and a lot of what we talked about previously, is all about strategy. And so I think the big mistake that a lot of people make is, this is an easy road to make money. and this is an easy road to fund my business. It's not. It's actually the opposite of that. It's really quite difficult. You really need to know what you're doing. You really need to have a clear strategy, and you need to have a great team. And your business has to make sense. I mean, in the rewards world, you can have a cool idea. There was some guy that raised, I can't remember how many tens of thousands of dollars to make a great potato salad.
Right.
It's hilarious and it's trendy and it's fun, and people just gave him money because they thought it was cool. That is a very different world than, the equity platforms, which are really, you got to know your stuff. You've got to have a strong business plan. You've got to have a good opportunity for investors, who's really who you're talking to on an equity platform, for investors to invest in your company. So it's cool. It gives you more access, and I think that's the thing that is exciting. Is as an entrepreneur, I know for myself, I'm dealing with my pool of individuals and maybe a few contacts that I have, their pool of individuals. With the crowd, we're now talking about potentially millions of people that are now exposed to my business, my opportunity, my project, and the opportunity to participate in that in a financial way, which is huge, because really the name of the game in fundraising of any sort is numbers. It's knocking on as many doors as you can. It's no different than sales. It's no different than a lot of other things you do as an entrepreneur, but it's really a numbers game. It's how many people can you touch with this message, and the more people you touch, the more opportunity you have to fund that initiative. So now we're taking this and exponentially exposing your project or your business or your opportunity. So that's what I think makes it so exciting for the entrepreneur.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And, I think funding is probably one of the biggest challenges that any business who wants to make a social difference in the world faces. But, I'm curious, as you've been growing and evolving in this particular type of industry, what do you think has been the biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, I think, this is like the bit of the Wild West in a lot of ways. And one of the challenges we had right away was, everybody said they were an expert and nobody had any idea what they were doing. So
in crowdsouring, you're talking about,
in crowdsourcing, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, which is true of a lot of things. And so a lot of it, I think, in the end, it was such a steep learning curve for us. I mean, moving into the crowdfund space, you put yourself on a stage, you put yourself on a platform, and there are many great benefits to that when it comes to your leadership and your accountability. And, now you're on a stage. You've said something out into the world. There are millions of people potentially that are seeing that message.
Yeah.
And so you now really need to up your game. And those are things that, can be very confronting in a lot of ways, can be very exposing, can be very challenging for myself. I definitely know, we really had to be incredibly diligent in our commitment, our due diligence, our research, really managing our team very, very well. And in the end, I mean, we ended up doing, I think we talked about before, a failed campaign isn't a failure. And the thing is, as a team, like, I think about the crowdfund space like a political campaign. You're really running a campaign, and there's an objective at the end of that campaign. At that point, once you've stepped into that arena to say, we're going to run this campaign, that's it. You're on the track. You're running a campaign. And so everything you do, everything that shows up is a part of building you towards that goal. So let's say, you do a campaign and maybe you don't meet the fundraise target, but you attracted strategic partnerships and alliances. You built a strong core team. You brought in an advisory board. All of those things took your business to the next level. And then in turn, because you did those things, the funding showed up. So really trusting this process, right? That it's about having the momentum of a committed team moving in a committed direction towards the fulfillment of a vision. And at that point, it's really trusting this process to unfold and mold that vision, because oftentimes as an entrepreneur, where we start and where we end are not the same place. And so you have to be open, right? You have to be open. I mean, oh my God, our first project that we took into the crowdfund space, because we wanted to experiment, right? We wanted to figure this out. It was just so funny, because where we are now and where we were then are literally, I mean, the essence and the core of vision is there, absolutely. But the vision itself has evolved and in a very positive way. And if we had have closed the door on that evolution or not honored that process or quit at some point because, maybe it didn't look the way that we thought it was going to look, or we tried something and it didn't work. And so we quit and that was it. And we could have done all of those things at any step, but instead we just stayed committed to where we were going. And what has now manifested from that has been probably bigger than I think any of us had any recognition of in the beginning. And then we've got top talent in our team. We're attracting, top experts in their field that are now showing up saying, hey, you know what you're doing is really cool. We want to be a part of that. And we wouldn't have had access to that had we not done what we did, through this campaign. So, and I think that I know as an entrepreneur, one of the toughest things is staying the course. Oftentimes everything around you is shifting and changing and uncertain. And so you have to really ground yourself in, why you're doing it. What's the purpose? What's the purpose for you as a being in the world and what you want to create and the mark you want to leave? And what's the purpose for the business? And, what is that business doing in the world and what changes is it making? And that evolves too. So you have to really stay connected with your why. And then move your team and support your team and be very open to the evolution that will inevitably happen as you move a campaign forward.
Yeah. And I love that you brought the team part in and the leadership because truly, this type of campaign is a complete reflection on how you're showing up as a leader.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a question for you. What was like the thing that helped you become a stronger, more confident leader?
Oh, man. Such a great question. This process for me and my leadership, it's really taken my leadership to the next dimension. And, there's a couple components to that for me. One is for like any entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you're in the crowdfund space or not, any entrepreneur should have an internal team, a board of advisors. I call it my internal board of directors. I work with a program called Living in Balance. They've been my coaching team for the last decade. Any major thing that's going on, that team is there for me. They're not there for my company or my people or my investors. They are there for my success. And that piece is so fundamental because once you step on this track, it will push your leadership in every way possible. Life will test you. Do you really want what you want? And you have to evolve. You have to evolve in your consciousness, evolve in your emotional maturity, evolve in your interpersonal skills and relationship. And oftentimes you actually build yourself out of a job a few times along the way. The things that I was good at the beginning, I'm not good at now because my leadership has evolved and now I need to hire people to do those things because I'm now in a new space in leadership where I need to run that team and not be the one that's implementing necessarily on the ground. So it's challenged my leadership in such a positive way. Also to your level of discernment, what is constructive criticism, what works, what doesn't work, what's relevant to you. Everybody is going to have an opinion about what you're doing, on how you're doing it. And, and you should do this and you should do this and you shouldn't do that. And you can't please everybody. And so that connection within yourself, I think, I know within myself, as a leader, having that internal support team around me that is really there to make sure that, I'm supported and then that I can then support my team, having the right team, knowing when you don't have the right team. And my goodness, fire fast. It doesn't make you popular. It doesn't make you exciting. Everybody is not going to like you for it, but a degree of misalignment in the beginning will become a mile very, very quickly. And if you do not have alignment in your core team, it will make it incredibly challenging to be successful, no matter what you're doing. In a crowdfund scenario, everything becomes heightened because you are working on a deadline in this environment where everything is very compressed. So what it did for me is it really took every hole I have in my business, put a magnifying glass over all of it at the same time. And then, the question is back to me saying, do you really want this? Are you really ready to be the leader and to increase your consciousness and to increase your emotional maturity and to really lead this vision and really steward this vision and this team who trusts you, to the finish line and create that result and then be able to stand in that leadership and take things, once you create the result, that's really only part of it. It's now taking that vision forward and to the next level out into the world and, manifesting whatever that is that you're building and creating.
Yeah, well said, really well said. And, anytime you have any kind of compressed timeline, I was just thinking as you were talking about those of us that do online launches or, you do product launches, that's another way in which we get these compressed, like, oh my God, all this stuff has to be done in this short amount of time. And it can literally put your team in this frenzied state. And you have to step up and lead, and you have to step up and hold the vision of the greater outcome. And know how to make really important choices along the way. Otherwise, you lose team members, and you can burn out and have a lot of things. So I think it's a similar concept, and I really appreciate the conversation of leadership because I think a lot of people forget to lead. They get so pulled into the trenches and start being the doer, and it's easy to lose perspective there. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny, like we could be talking about anything right now in business. It's really the same conversation. The fact that we're talking about, crowdsourcing or crowdfunding, it could be a conversation about leadership. It could be a conversation about relationship. It's all really the same thing. And so much of business is an inner game, and it really is. How I got to tell you, like, if you have inner insecurities, you better believe, in this kind of scenario, those are going to get graded on top of, and people are going to show up to push on your pain points and push hard and tell you can't do it and tell you this idea is stupid and all those things. I don't mean to be so brash about it, but those things do show up, and it's so important to really be strong, and that's where right back to the same thing, like your inner support team, your self-care, how you are taking care of yourself, how you are connecting with your purpose or your spirituality, and what takes care of you, and then who that team is around you that is just as radical and just as crazy as you are, that really supports where you're going, because the outside world is not always so supportive, and being a leader is so much more than owning a company, and it's so much more than a paycheck or numbers on a page. It's a real inner game. It's really about evolving as a human being into this role of leadership, and the ownership around that, and the responsibility that you have as a person in the world for what you're creating and who you're being, and this team that you have that have invested in you just as much as you've invested in them. And there's a real beauty in that. I think there's a lot of real synergy with life in a lot of ways, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but not everybody's up for that, right?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people kind of slink away or self-sabotage that responsibility. And I think there's so many different directions I want to take this conversation, but I really want to come back to something pivotal here, and that is, you obviously are helping these social businesses be able to get funding and be able to achieve their dreams. But I'm curious, like, how does somebody know they need someone like you to help them with their business?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we really kind of stumbled into this. It was because I think we were talking about this earlier. Most of it was really because everyone kept saying they knew what they were doing, and I was asking questions, and they're going, we never thought about that. That's a really good question. And I thought, man, if these people don't know what they're doing, that is a scary thing for me. And so the reason this is really, it's a conversation, as an entrepreneur, it's really about bringing people into your team that are there for you and that are really, going to help set you up for success. And so for me, I don't know, I think it's a real personal choice. It's about where you want to go, and having a team of advisors around you that can take you there.
Well, let me ask a better question. So do you literally help people do crowdsourcing for their social based causes? Is that what you
Yeah,
do? Yeah.
well, we've kind of stumbled into this space and have become a little bit of an advisor and a consultant in this area, and
Okay.
really helping to put campaigns together and vet business models and do things like that to help entrepreneurs succeed in this space.
Yeah. And is there other things that you help people with as well in the spectrum of growing businesses?
Um, Coming from this private finance world and development world, oftentimes I work with a lot of clients on the finance side. So
Okay.
building creative finance structures, really looking at different ways to fund business, different things to creative ways to maybe look at things that perhaps they haven't thought of before. And that's anything
Interesting.
from bricks and mortar to to tech really, and like I say, I mean, we haven't really set up a shop and said, here's what we do, but people keep coming to us and wanting us to kind of do this. And it's something that we've been doing for years on the other side as a consultant in the development world.
Hmm.
So, really positioning development projects for success and working with investor teams to ensure that, those particular projects are attractive, that their numbers make sense, that their presentation makes sense, that it's
Yeah.
clear and concise, and more than anything, that they have a strategy and that strategy can be executed on, and that strategy has different exit points so that if we get boxed into a corner somewhere, we have other ways we can go. And so those are things we've been doing for years. And now, in moving into this crowdfund space, we started to open up the door to work with entrepreneurs around, really creating successful campaigns and really knowing, who's who in the zoo and who do they want to be talking to and who do they want to align themselves with. And, just really kind of sharing this knowledge and information that we have to help others succeed.
Got it. I love it. I want to ask you in a minute about where people can find you, but I have to just ask. You brought up mindset, and usually you don't really hear people in the tech space or in traditional brick and mortar space go into the mindset conversation as much. But I get you get it. Like, has there been a book or like a resource that was really pivotal for you on the journey around what we might say cultivating your own mindset?
Yeah, for me, I mean, this has been decades in the work, and I'm very committed to my personal growth. And so it hasn't been anything specific in the sense of, read this book or do this one thing. It's process. And
Hmm.
for me, to be honest, the fundamental thing, hands down, has been my coaching team. I work with Living in Balance Coaching. It's a women entrepreneur program in BC, sorry, in Canada. And that for me has 100% been the number one thing that has been the difference between my ability to succeed and or fail.
Yeah.
And it's surrounding yourself with coaches and mentors that can really support an entrepreneur, because not always are we going to succeed. And I think that's the thing, especially when we're young. What I notice in the tech world is there's a lot of youth there, and I'm a youthful person too. I mean, I've been the youngest person in my field for so long. I've always, had that judgment. And so it's not about saying that youth can't accomplish things and succeed at all. But what's missing is experience, and what's missing are, these building blocks of failing forward. And so there can be a lot that can be learned from failure. And not often are we, or not always are we going to succeed. So really having, people around you that no matter what are there to support you to win. And sometimes that looks like going through a failure to get to the other side. And once you're on the other side, looking back, saying, what did we learn? What worked? What didn't work? Where do we want to refine? Pick our bootstraps up, face those internal fears we have going on around perhaps, abundance or success or judgment or ridicule or whatever's going on internally, and, being supported around those things so that we can now try again and hopefully be successful the next time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up coaching because I think a lot of people kind of think of it as an afterthought, but really, in my own experience and most of the people that I've interviewed on this series, like getting coached and really investing in your own mindset and your own personal growth that's 90% of your success. The marketing and all that other stuff, that's so much easier when you've got the right foundation. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Oh, I could get on a soapbox about this. Like, I see a lot of young entrepreneurs that come and see me, and they have these great business ideas, and my number one question is like, who's your team? Your team, your coaching team. Who are your advisors? Who is your support? And honestly, you would be better off as an entrepreneur to build that first.
Yeah.
And then take on, whatever the thing is that you're moving into, because I agree with you 100%. That piece is so fundamental. We can watch a YouTube on how to market. We can, those things become tools. They don't become the only thing, but it's the inner game of business that is really the difference between success and failure. And, if you look at lottery winners are a really good example of this. There's some weird statistic like 90%. I think it's even higher than that. 90 or 95% of lottery winners a year later are bankrupt.
Yeah.
And that there's a reason for that. Their consciousness is not in a place of being able to steward and own that kind of wealth. And wealth is a consciousness. Success is a consciousness. It's something that you have inside before you have it on the outside. And there's such a common misconception that once I get the money, then I'll be successful. Or once I get I get the success, then, I'll be wealthy and it's going to address all these inner fears I have. Erroneous. I hate to burst the bubble. It's just not true. It really comes from the inside out. And so your success foundation and your wealth consciousness, your wealth foundation have to be strong inside before you will ever be able to steward and own it on the outside. And I mean, we can go through hundreds of examples of celebrities and wins and losses. And you see it all the time of these people that, get what they think they wanted and then don't know how to be there. And that's where this coaching team comes in, because they're really there to help you evolve on that journey to become that person so that your consciousness matches the level of the thing you want. And when you're in it, natural. And yes, you're going to have things that come up, but that's when you go back to that coaching team to really be supported so that you don't make silly mistakes. I have a running total of about, this is an embarrassing statistic from my journey as a business owner. I think I gave away something like $1.2 million in not in like equity and actual money, because we had no idea. We built a massive amount of success at a very young age and had no idea what to do with it. And, so we made bad business deals and signed 6-figure checks to people with handshakes because, I'm a word is my bond kind of person and not everybody else is. And we made so many stupid mistakes as a company that, thankfully we came out of that okay, but man, it got pretty close for a while.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at why, it's this conversation, because I didn't have the consciousness to be able to handle that amount of success and all the negativity that came with it. For me, it was received as negativity because I wasn't able to handle what I had created, and so I just gave it away like it was no big deal, like it was monopoly money. And anyway, that's another story for another day. But
that's when we're going to get on the money mindset call.
There we go. Yeah, let me tell you, I could get into a conversation about that.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm really glad you shared that, though, and I appreciate the candor, because I think a lot of people can relate. And, when I teach the Money DNA Mastery course, that's what I hear over and over and over again. People just don't have the consciousness to sustain what they've created. So we'll cover that at another time. Okay, last quick question, and we'll make this one super short. I'm just curious, do you have a favorite quote that keeps you inspired?
Oh, that is a great question. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but for me, it's really, to really trust yourself. Mm-hmm. The thing is there are something like 8 billion people on the planet. Each one of us is unique. We were created to fulfill that uniqueness. We were not created to imitate. And so you really trust yourself, because you were put here to do something very unique. And to be grounded in that it's not going to be the same as everybody else. And so, it's that internal compass, I think, that is really peace for me, that grounds me back to myself and to my purpose on this planet, and, and to really trust that inner wisdom and that inner guidance.
I like it. Thanks. All right. So let's tell everybody, if they are looking for support in this way, they want to get funding and consider crowdsourcing or other creative options. Do you have a website set up or someplace that they can come learn more about the way you work with people?
Yeah, funny enough, we actually don't have a website for this.
I
And
love that. This is working so well, we don't even have to advertise.
yeah, it's so amazing. Yeah, just find me. Send a pigeon. Send a courier pigeon.
Yeah.
But
Float a little smoke signal.
yeah, exactly. You can check out one of our most recent projects is AthenaOrganicFarm.ca, and you can find me at KrystineMcInnes.ca, or at Goddess Mortgage is my Twitter handle. Don't ask. Or Krystine McInnes, which is my LinkedIn, and yeah, just feel free to contact me and chat a little more about what we're doing here, and yeah, if we can help in any way, we'd love to.
I'm really inspired. Like, this is such a great mindset expander to really explore all the possibilities of how to fund what you're passionate about and be able to create growth capital in a whole new way. So thanks for sharing your ideas. And if you've been inspired like I have, and you're listening on Stitcher Radio or iTunes, come over to the blog. Come share something that you can put into action or what you learned today at melaniebensonstrick.com. And of course, if you're already on the blog, we'd love to hear your aha or insight in the comments below. And Krystine, thanks again so much for being here with us today. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next week with another really great insight on how to make your business perform better. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much.